Okay.
Thank you. We're waiting for members of the task force to join us. Once we have a quorum, we will start the meeting.
All right. Well, good evening and welcome. Today is December 21st, 2021. We're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order on this nice rainy day. All right. Can I get a roll call, Ann?
Member Dostie?
Present.
Member Downs?
Here.
Member Gary?
Here.
Member Hamady?
Here.
Member Johns? I'm not seeing him. Member Leon is absent, excused. Member Locke?
Present.
Member Newton? He's here. Member Oliver?
Present.
Member Wong is not here. And Member Wright?
Here.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. We'll move down to line item number 3. Do we have any public comments at this time? This is a time you can raise your hand and speak on any items that are not on the agenda. All right, go ahead and let the public in.
Yeah, hey, good evening. Just wondering what's up with members being absent. I mean, who wants to volunteer to something and then not show up? Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't seem like they're really into it or interested, 110%. Anyway, let me turn down my radio. But I got 2 radios on. I got a lot going on here. So, I was wondering if the police department had figured anything out or got anything organized regarding a flyer yet or a kit or something when they interact with homeless people. And why do you call them transients? What's a transient? Does that mean they're trans? What is transient? I don't understand transient. What is a transient? Albany Police Department. I was labeled as a transient. What, because I had a beard and I lived in an RV? What? I'm a transient? I mean, I used to be a quarterback of the Albany High School football team, pitcher for baseball, wrestled, student athlete, overall GPA 3.73. Went to Long Beach State. Thanks, Albany Police Department, for labeling me as a transient. You guys are so judgmental. You guys got a lot going on. I mean, don't you have a kit when you meet a homeless person sleeping in their car? Like the person at the library, the senior citizen, female. Are you guys doing anything about it? Do you have a kit in your trunk with a bottle of water, a bag of some sun chips, and a flyer? It says resources. There's a laundry program on Thursday. There's a shower program for an hour, but you might be turned away or something. I don't know what's up with that. Or what's really going on? You meet a transient and you tell them to call 211. Oh, Carol? Really, Carol? Carol told Judy the other day that she can't park there at the library. This was 2 or 3 days ago. Carol from Berkeley Food and Housing. Judy told me that Carol told her that she can't park there. What?
All right, thank you so much for your comment. Let me just make sure there's not any other comments. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment and we'll go to line number 4, which is an announcement. I will have Anne read 4.1 to the task force member.
So the City Council approved the Community Task Force on Policing, an extension for additional 3 meetings, with the last meeting to be held by March 31st, 2022. And on that note, there's an additional announcement for the January meeting. The option that we have available for a 7 o'clock meeting would be January 31st. That is a Monday. The reason for that is the meeting for the task force fell on the same day as the City Council meeting due to the legal holiday. So the next meeting in January will be January 31st at 7 p.m.
All right, thank you so much, Anne. I'll open it up to the members. Do you have any questions or anything you would like to add or comment on the announcement? All right, if not, we'll go ahead and move down to line number 6, which is discussion and possible action on matters related to the following items. We'll start with 6-1, the Reimagining Albany Police Safety Subcommittee report. And so I'll turn it over to Chair Dawsey or Member Oliver, whoever wants to go first on this, or Member Hamilton. I think, Member Hamilton, you had an updated form you wanted us to look at. If you want to present that, that's fine, or just whichever one of you guys want to jump in, that'd be great.
Yeah, I did have a new version of it. I don't know, I think maybe I'm happy to share my screen and go over it now, but I also just want to say that if folks would prefer, given that we have been extended, to look over it in their own time and then discuss in more detail next time, that's fine too. But let me try to share my screen here. Disappeared. Let's try that again. Okay, so I can walk through it. I know we've done this a couple times now. I do just want to say, so I think, it's been helpful as we've gone through this. I think what I tried to do here is find a happy medium. I don't think, as Member Downs has expressed, I don't think I disagree that we're looking at for a statement of principles. I don't think that will be sufficiently strong and will leave too much room for in both the implementation and in the council as they vote on such a document to do as they wish. So I think it does need to be more specific than that, but I think you folks have made some good points about getting lost in the details. And so I did try, this is the second time now, we've tried to err on the side of less rather than more when it comes to the details that we provided. So, the preliminary section that just lays out the foundation is still the same. So where we've gotten into a lot of healthy disagreement is when we come here to the creation of a public safety department. So I've now limited it to the fact that the city will create such a department. It will consist solely of unarmed personnel. There will be a crisis response team within the public safety department that will specialize in handling housing, mental, and behavioral health emergencies. And that will include the 911 call center, fire department, emergency medical services, and the crisis response team. That will all be within the public safety department. For the 911 call center, non-police clinical experts will staff the call center, funneling calls either to the police department or the public safety department based on predetermined risk-based criteria. So before we laid out all these criteria, here we are leaving it to the implementation committee to determine how those criteria will be decided upon. But I do think from my conversations with Dana Cook, who the police chief referred me to, who already does some crisis response, that there are specific criteria in place that we could use. But again, rather than getting into the weeds here, just laying out that the 911 call center, instead of having a police department employee decide how things will go, it would be a non-police employee, and it would be a clinical expert who decides where we take it from there. Their traffic and parking enforcement would be handled by the public safety department where there's no evidence of immediate danger to the public. Community outreach would be conducted by unarmed city personnel. End all criminalization of poverty, including repealing enforcement of laws criminalizing homelessness. So again, we left that a little bit more open-ended to determine how that exactly, what specific ordinances would be implicated by that. But so there, it's closer to maybe a statement of principles. Programming will no longer be the chief of Albany Police's discretion to simply create and implement programming without approval from the city council. Ending the subscription to Lexipol and other one-size-fits-all policing. Request that Albany Unified School District end programs that bring police officers into the school. So, yeah, I mean, demilitarizing the APD, initiating a comprehensive review of technology, and renegotiating the MOU between the Albany Peace Officers Association and the city, preventing candidates for city council from accepting funding, tracking and periodically publishing reports of suspicious person calls, revoking, as far as body cameras, revoking officer discretion to turn the cameras off, requiring footage be stored externally where district attorneys and civilian oversight structures such as the Public Safety Accountability Commission have direct access. And then rather than, I think in the last version, we had, 20 different ideas for investing in the community. We will leave that to the implementation committee and instead are simply proposing that the police budget for 2022 be reduced by an amount 50% or greater, and that funding of community programs and non-police city agencies, including the newly formed Department of Public Safety, will be increased by a commensurate amount. And then, again, as I mentioned, we would create a Reimagining Public Safety Implementation Committee with a specific charge of implementing the task force recommendations that we've discussed, and members of the committee would be appointed by the Social and Economic Justice Commission. That's where we're at.
All right, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions? And we can start. If you want to go to the section where you already edited. So we'll start with this section, line 1 through 5. Does anyone have any questions, input, or suggestions?
I have a general question, and then I would like, Member Hamady mentioned having it available to us to review, and that would help because I'm struggling a little bit to read it on screen, and I think we probably all want time, or at least I want time to read it. And the question is just about, what do you see as the benefits of creating an entirely separate department as opposed to having a single, say, public safety department in which the police sit under? And, my question really turns on whether creating separate departments seems like a way to resolve issues, but actually can create confusion and, kind of not only create more bureaucracy and expense, but also create confusion. And would it make more sense to have a unified department with these principles in which police are one segment of it? This seems to be thinking that if we build a wall, then the problems don't occur. And my guess would be that probably, at least I'm open to the idea, the more effective way is to build a structure of hierarchy within the department to ensure that problems don't occur.
So I very strongly disagree, and that's because of my conversation with Dana Cook of Bonita House. So we do already have a crisis response team within Albany. And the way it works is the police department fields the call, and they decide whether police are required or whether the crisis response team, an unarmed group of individuals with clinical expertise, can respond. And so per Dana, given that the police are handling the initial call, police are almost always included in the initial call. And it's only after people with guns show up that then the police can decide, oh, you know what, we're not needed. And of course, the crisis response team has no authority in terms of saying, actually, you're not needed. It's the police that get to decide. And I think our culture is such that as long as the police are involved, the non-police members will kowtow to them. And we've seen it again. We saw it with the budget. Normally, when you're trying to advocate for a particular budget, it's this uphill battle, and you got to prove everything is necessary. The police, they just say what they want, and everybody's like, well, I'm not a police expert. So I think that the fact that the alternative you propose, I think, could only work if the head of the public safety department was also the police chief's boss. The police chief's that's not going to fly. So to me, what you propose sounds like a compromise, but it's just as politically difficult. So given that, I want a clear delineation of I want at the outset, and based on what Dana Cook was saying, if you have someone from the police department who's making that initial call on what kind of service is necessary, more often than not, the police will be involved, and then they will have the authority to decide, whether they want to rush in and take care of things. So I think in a perfect world, and maybe, the next iteration of this could involve a hybrid kind of version where the police get wrapped up into the public safety department. But it sounds like right now what all that would do is we continue to have what we have now with Bonita House, where you'd have available non-police unarmed individuals who could respond, but their ability to respond would be entirely dependent upon the police chief and the police department's decision to allow them to handle it. So I think in any gray area case that would still result in the status quo that we have.
All right, is there anyone else before I turn it over for public comment?
Yes, I just raised my hand.
Yes.
This question follows along the previous line of discussion. And as a follow-up question, I'd like to ask Member Hamady, do you believe that this deference or perceived deference for a law enforcement response is a matter of training, process, procedure? Have you attempted to sort of diagnose why is a law enforcement dispatch-based system inclined to favor a law enforcement response? Along with that, do you have any evidence to suggest or data to suggest that removing that function entirely from law enforcement will result in a more appropriate distribution of service calls?
So this is based on, I think I mean, I'll speak for myself, but I didn't realize at the outset of this task force that there already was a crisis response team that Albany was contracting with. Well, it's actually Alameda County, but through that contractual relationship with the county, the crisis response team does handle incidents within the city. What we do have, according to the crisis response team through Bonita House, they have the ability to provide a lot of the services that we're talking about, but they are prevented from doing so because the police are the ones that get to call the shots on when they're involved and when they're not. I think that a change along the lines of having a non-police employee with clinical expertise making these decisions, yes, I think that would make a major difference. I think that as long as the person making those calls has their salary paid by the police department and is responsive to the police chief, I think they would reasonably be concerned that if they ever deviated from what the police chief thought was the best method, that there would be consequences for them. So I think that person needs to be independent. All that being said, I don't think there's anything nefarious. I don't think the police department I met with the chief of police. I think he's a good guy, and I don't think that they're against the crisis response team being involved because they're power hungry or anything like that. I think it's just they have different priorities and different priorities from what this task force is about. It's just, I think it's sort of common sense that just if the person who's deciding whether to send out armed policemen or unarmed crisis response team, if the person making that call is subordinate to the police chief and is part of that department, then that will affect their decision making, and it has. In practice, that has been the case, according to Dana Cook of Bonita House.
Sure, and I guess my question, the first part of the question, was around whether or not there's another solution other than the creation of a separate chain of command, right? Are there other ways to insulate that individual or individuals in the dispatch function from those repercussions that you mentioned, right? That the perception of going against what the command structure says, right? Is there a way to do that structurally? Is there a way to do that through training and other alternatives to creation and housing this in an entirely new infrastructure? That was sort of my question.
I don't think training would. The reality of if your boss is and the person who decides whether you remain employed is someone who is within a particular department, that's just no amount of training is going to, it would be unfair to ask someone to act as if that's not the reality. And then I'm certainly open, and I think all the members, I'll let Corey, I know, has his hand up, and we'll get to him immediately after this, and I'll shut up. I think we're probably open to, if there is some, ombudsman type structure, like if there's a way to just have the person who makes that initial determination, they're independent, but then there's like, it's not a whole, like maybe the public safety department has some overlap with the police force, but there's certainly ways that we can think about that. But I don't think that, I think that as long as the dispatch, the 911 call center, as long as the person who's making that ultimate determination is subordinate to the police chief, I don't see any way around, the bias that would result from that. So I'll turn it over to Corey.
All right. Is that okay, Mayor Gary?
No, Council Member Gary. And I just want to say, let's just be respectful of Corey's pronouns when we're addressing her. Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, he is on my list of.
Oh, okay. I didn't see he, so sorry. But let's just be mindful. Thank you so much. Now you can speak. Yes.
Appreciate everyone's efforts. Thank you.
Wait, sorry, just to clarify, I thought, was I wrong?
You're
No.
okay.
Okay.
So sorry about that.
Okay.
Member.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a newer I've been putting out. If he's easier for you, he's fine. So we're good. Great question, Member Locke. If I could come back to it. Yes. Yeah, so my understanding is that there have been places that have tried sort of retraining or insulating in that way, and that it is a cultural thing and a background of training, right? If you get a new training that is like, okay, now you're going to do things differently, even if that's a fairly intensive training, if you went through an academy that was months or years, it is really hard to undo all of that. And you probably also went into that academy with a particular orientation of that was where you wanted to learn things and that philosophy. So the philosophy of police dispatchers is police oriented. It is that police are usually the solution or the first step in a solution. And that is very, very difficult to undo with a training intervention, just as bias in police is very, very difficult, has not been statistically shown to work through a training to intervene. So the current best recommendation is to have it be someone who has not been trained as a police dispatcher and who is not reporting to police, so that they do not have those influences, because it is this different lens and approach and culture and perspective and way of living in and seeing the world of, well, to secure the scene, we need to have a gun there. And we need someone who's trained in if there's an altercation of violence versus, well, maybe de-escalation and mental health crisis, recognizing, oh, you're having a PTSD flashback trauma response. Oh, you are hallucinating that there is something there that is very scary to you. And I know how to talk to you about that is not about saying, oh, it's not there, but being like, hey, that sounds really scary. That's not what I see going on, but I hear you, and things like that, right? Being able to make those differentiations are not baked into police dispatchers at any level. And I don't think that that's something that can be stacked on top. So that's what we're looking at with it being clinical personnel who are not police employees. And I know the new infrastructure thing is maybe intimidating cost-ways, but there's this huge cost of this ongoingly not working with these sort of patch reform. Well, if we do a training, I hope that answers that question.
Thank you, Member Dawson. If there's anyone else, I will go ahead and open it up for public comment, and we'll bring it back to finalize this item. Go ahead, please. Jeremiah, if you're speaking, you're on mute. Okay, we'll go ahead and see if there's anyone else. All right, we'll bring it back to the task force. So I agree. I think this document should be sent to all of us so we can have time to kind of review it and take notes, interject any ideas or whatever thoughts we have in regards to this item. We have until January 31st to collect our thoughts and actively get something together so we can move forward to present. I want to ask, is there a possibility that some of the members that have already finished their portion are working would be willing to help the subcommittee kind of formalize something? That would be great if you're open to that. If not, we can individually do it and bring it back as a subcommittee. Go ahead, Member Dawson.
I would also just like to put on the table the possibility of chunking this, which I think we brought up last time, but we didn't really get into how we would, because we definitely don't want it to be like, okay, here's the easy to pass stuff. Cool, it was passed. Now here's the harder to pass stuff. Okay, none of it's passed, right? But I do think that there is a possibility of us chunking our discussion at least so that it's easier to get through. Okay, what do we agree on? And what do we have disagreements about? And potentially chunking it into, okay, here's the stuff about creating the public safety department, and then here's stuff about other things. So just, I think that's something to, if you have ideas about how to chunk it, please bring that to us as a subcommittee where the Brown Act allows, or bring it to the next meeting.
Sounds fair enough. Anyone else? All right, so Member Hamady, if you can get that to Ann, and then Ann, if you can distribute that to the members so we can have that prior to our next meeting. All right, we'll move down to item number 6.2, the budget subcommittee report. Member Wright, I know Member Lund is not here. Did you want to report out or have any requests for additional information you need for the subcommittee? Member Wright? You're on mute.
Yeah. We did get some information today. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. So you did get information today?
Yeah, we did get some information today regarding what's the actual budget versus what the expense is. And something that popped up is that on the budget, it shows that the police department is budgeted to generate roughly $280,000 in revenue. And so we're asking where that revenue came from. And most of that we found out later on. I haven't had a chance to really digest it and ask some questions about it. It's mostly from fines and forfeitures. And that may be something we need to look into. It's a fairly large amount. As we look at the budget, I was just sitting there. I was paying attention, but I got everything late. I'm trying to crunch the numbers. And we'll definitely get this to everyone so you can digest it later. But one of the things that I noticed is that the police, the budget itself, it was, when you look at the expense versus less revenue, the police budget is 32% of the budget is expense. But when you move over to the actual, what actually happened in terms of the city as a whole, the city's revenue and the city's expense, the police department, when you look at their actuals, the police department turned out to be 28% of the actual expense. And in terms of the revenue, on the revenue side, what it costs is 25%. We still believe that there's some opportunity for the police department to really manage the budget a little bit better in terms of personnel. One of the things that we found out, which I will definitely work on tomorrow and have for the next meeting, is there is no way for the budget office to identify what staffing level they have, which is pretty interesting. And it's based on they're telling me that there's a lot of fluctuation between retirement and people coming on and off. But if you're going to have a budget, you should have a fairly closer number that you can look at. The email that I saw last around 5 o'clock today is that they have, I think, 33, and there's one person scheduled to retire. So I'm not sure if we're asking to replace that person that is budgeted for, or we're asking to expand the staff. And that is something that I will definitely be working on over the holiday to figure out what exactly is the real number that they want to work in. Because the emails that we looked at give us at 1 year, I believe it's 2018, what's budgeted and was actual is a variance of five personnel, 5 full-time personnel. That's a lot. And if you're talking about managing a budget, if you're missing 5 full-time persons, you have to use overtime to cover that, which then skews your budget and a whole bunch of other things that goes along there. And we're more looking at how we can use the funds that we have now without impacting the general population. The numbers, if we run them by what running it against the list of 50 cities that we use, percentage of city funds spending went from 28 to 31%. If I calculate that right, because we can't give you a calculation on a per resident number because we don't have the real number of staff in. So these are two, and the ratio of police to resident, we don't have the right number for that. So we'll definitely try to get that for us at our next meeting. But it's interesting. It's very I keep my opinion to myself.
Thank you so much, Member Wright. I'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Go ahead, Member Dossi.
Is there anything you're still waiting on receiving at this point?
Yes, more clarification on the staffing. That is really critical.
Would you, Councilmember Gary, would you like for us to have a resolution, expressing that it's all of our will that you get that information? It might be redundant from what we've done before, but I'd certainly be glad to either move or second that if that's what the subcommittee would like, just so that there's no uncertainty on the part of city staff that we all back this.
Well, the stuff I requested some stuff. It took me about 2 hours to get it. So it seems like there's progress.
Okay.
It's more of not being able to understand the information that is in front of them. And it's not a criticism of the department. Maybe it's just the way the numbers are gathered. and because over time, no one have ever focused on that. So things are a little bit spread out over the place. By the way, I just want to clarify that if there's a resolution that need to be made, it would not hurt. But right now, from what we see, is that we're getting some cooperation.
Well, I think it would help because we have till March, so we just don't need any hiccups to try to move things forward. I mean, council is waiting on us to provide a report, and we just want to make sure that the subcommittees, you have all the information you need in order to provide the information needed to the council. So if you're in agreement with that, if we can get a motion, see if we can get a resolution draft for that.
I agree with that.
Is that a motion? Second? Go ahead, Ann.
I just wanted to add, if you do want to bring a resolution or draft a resolution, it would be on the next agenda, which means January, and then you would approve it, and then, then it's, by then you may already have.
Yeah, you're right. So hopefully, if you're getting cooperation, getting emails, definitely just keep emailing the staff. I'm sure Ann will be able to get the information you need.
Yes, I do copy Ann. I do copy Ann and Heather, and it came back really quick. I was surprised.
Oh, very good, very good. All right. And so with that information, is there any member would like to look at the information that Member Wright has, or just to add input or suggestions to the budget subcommittee as we're evaluating the Reimagining subcommittee document? We can definitely have that information shared as well. And then that way, I think that'll kind of help the formulation of the group, the Imagining. If we know what the budget is, then we'll know exactly, how to move things accordingly on the Reimagining piece. So if you can, and if you can forward that information along with the Reimagining document that Member Hamady had, that will help the group get things moving along.
Yes, if Member Hamady would send, actually, I think I just received it.
Okay.
I will go ahead and post it along with the agenda for today.
Okay.
So you can find the information. I'll post it afterwards tomorrow morning, that the document for the Reimagining will be for that document. And if Member Wright would share any information, I will post that as well. So the task force member, along with members of the public, would have equal access.
Very well. Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and go to public comment before we adjourn the meeting. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, hey, thanks everybody. Good evening. Jeremiah here. I was just gonna say, I think one of the best solutions for all of this, I've been thinking a lot, and the Albany Fire Department is great. I mean, they're paramedics, they're trained with mental health things, the police, all this groups we're creating and got to train all these people. Then they're going to call the fire department to bring the ambulance. So it's like we're going straight to the source. We got another middle person between the ambulance. So, why don't we just have the ambulance or the fire department be this person instead of the police? Why doesn't the fire department respond to all these calls and do the mental health assessments? I mean, we could train all these people and spend all this time training police or training whoever, and they're still not going to be as good as an EMT paramedic who has already devoted their life to saving lives and to be there for people. So I think we really could, I know it's kind of late in the game here, but if we could just somehow put on the radar, and it's brought to your attention, that we could really bring in the fire department to where we could strengthen our fire department even more and create a crisis unit within the fire department and a mental health department within the fire department. Because they're already kind of trained in that. I mean, they've got the ambulance and the medical things. What do the police have? Guns and tasers and batons and ticket books? I mean, what do the police have as tools? They don't have tools, okay? They have weapons. Okay, the police department, they don't have, life-saving tools. They carry weapons of minor destruction. Okay, so you wanna have people who carry around weapons. I don't know. It's just kind of confusing to me. It's like sending the army or the military the Green Beret when you should be sending out the Red Cross, right? So we want to make sure we're sending out the right people to do this very important job. So, I'm just giving a shout out to the fire department. So keep them on the radar, please, and thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment. Let's make sure there's no more public comments or not. Okay, so Member Habity, go ahead, please.
So I just wanted to thank the mayor or former mayor for her service, and we can follow up offline, but I felt like since folks are here, I wasn't aware that you're no longer mayor, and I wanted to know, was that voted on in a public meeting? And
Yes.
Okay, and is it unusual for a mayor in Albany to only serve a single year, or is that because I was disappointed, and my recollection was that Peggy McQuaid served as mayor for all 4 years, but maybe I had that wrong. Regardless, I do think that it's something we should keep in mind, that we are fighting a status quo that is. I don't think we should just assume that the council members will be receptive to what we have to say, and I think there's been some evidence that they have some issues, and I can't speak to why Janelle is no longer the mayor, but I will just say that I felt a lot more comfortable with her in the leadership role, and I'm disappointed. So.
Thank you, Member Hamady, for your comment and your sentiments. I'm still here. We work together. Know that we're all striving to move our city forward. So we continue with the leadership that we have, and we're able to voice our opinions, and we can activate when needed. So don't be disappointed. Just be excited for the work that we're about to do. Okay, and with that said, is there any other members? No? Well, I wish you a happy holiday and an amazing new year, and the meeting is adjourned. Good evening.
Thank you.